Welcome to this week's edition of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. Now, this week's edition and this week's guest is a little bit of a character. Now, if John Daly of golfing fame were to loan his golf pants to someone for a shooting competition, it would be the guest this week. So with that, everyone join me in welcoming
Mr. McClain, John McClain.
Welcome, John. How you doing? Oh, hold on. Oh, there we are. Now we can talk. Hey. All right. Boy, it's been a little minute to get you on here and be able to do this. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's been a busy couple of months for sure, between getting my ass kicked at Carry Optics Nationals and then barely getting my ass kicked at or not barely. I got my ass kicked too at PCC Nationals, but just not nearly as bad. And then working and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm glad I was finally able to get this scheduled.
Yeah. So if you would go ahead and take a moment and introduce yourself.
I'm John McClain. I'm an alcohol. Oh wait, no, sorry, wrong meeting. No, I'm John McClain. I am. I hate using the word pro shooter. I'm a sponsored shooter. Let's call it that, right?
There you go.
I also work and employed by Arms Corps and Rock Island Armory as their product training manager. I shoot for Team Arms Corps alongside with some great team members like Eric Fell, JJ Rakaza, Athena Lee, Casey Ryan, Jermaine Adams. So. Obviously, other companies, great support from Vortex Optics, hence the hat. Terra Tactical Innovations, Sound Gear, just a whole bunch of. I'll have a whole slew of them. We can put it in a list or something like that. But
Okay.
Yeah, and then just I like to shoot fast. Sometimes I hit stuff. Every bullet so far has hit a berm, so that's a good
okay.
That's a good start.
That is a good start. Yeah, I initially saw you, I want to say not last year's Nationals, the year before, when it was Carry Optics and PCC.
Yeah.
I believe you were on the PCC Super Squad, were you not?
Yep.
Okay.
They've been sticking me on there the last couple of years.
All right, so we're going to come back to that.
Okay.
Before we get into that, I got to throw out all the really hard questions first, so then we can have fun.
Okay.
So I ask a bunch of icebreakers to get to know the guest. They're typically the hardest questions I find for the guest to be able to answer. So we're going to dive right in, and the first one is, what's your favorite movie?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so my favorite movie, like, in all my life and childhood, has to be Star Wars: A New Hope, but it's the original version of it, before George Lucas got his greasy little paws on it again and came out with a special edition bullshit with all the special effects. A New Hope, the classic New Hope, is going to forever be my favorite all-time movie. Han shot first.
Okay, so I don't remember them by their A New Hope, those types of titles. I only know them as Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 being the original three.
Episode 4, yep.
Episode 4. So the original Star Wars movie.
The original. My parents got me that trilogy on VHS as a birthday present. And yeah, I watched the first movie and was instantaneously hooked. I ended up watching that VHS tape so much that I destroyed it and had to buy another one. And then the special edition came out, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever in the world because I was young and dumb. And then as I got older, I was like, man, I wish I had the original VHSs again. This special edition crap is stupid.
Now, can you
buy
the original on DVD?
No, I've tried.
Wow.
I've been able to find some people that what they did was like they had like the laser discs versions, and they've tried to burn them into a DVD format. But like, I don't know what George Lucas did with the original cut. Bring it back. Like, stop ruining these movies. Bring back the originals, man. You had it right the first time. The special effects weren't anything special, but like back then, I'm sure they were like, "Oh my gosh, there's a spaceship flying over us," right? But man, once he did the look what I can do with CGI, it's like my computer could do that too, and it didn't do it very well. So get it out of the movies. And like I said, Han shot first. This political correctness bullcrap. He's a scoundrel.
I can remember when that movie came out. I didn't even know it was a thing, and I ran into was during the summer, and I ran into a schoolmate. We were like fifth, sixth grade, something like that. I forget what grade we were in, and we ran into each other at a pool. And he's like, "Man, I've seen Star Wars." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Star Wars. Have you heard of it?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I've seen it 28 times." Literally, that's what he said. 28 times. I was like, "Oh my! I've never even heard of this movie 28 times." So it was huge then when it came out, and it's still huge today.
Oh, I was such a dork. Like I had like the collection, like there was like a playing card game, right? I never figured out how to play the game, but I did collect the cards. I had a whole bunch of super rare ones. And yeah, I was an ultimate Star Wars nerd. If you, I have my little bookcase back over there behind me. 60% of the books are all Star Wars books because again, I'm just that much of a geek.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, you're definitely into it. All right. Now the question I find the most difficult for the guests is the next one.
Okay.
It may not be you though, because you have a bookcase behind you, and that would be your favorite book.
All right, so yeah, this one is kind of a difficult one, just because I've had quite a few books come into my life recently that I absolutely love. So I'm gonna have to go with like if I were gonna go, I'm gonna have to break this down. If I were gonna go to like absolute like just sci-fi, like outside of Star Wars, okay, because I don't think Star Wars is fair. There's too many of those books, but there is a book that is kind of sci-fi-y, yet it also seems to be really relevant in today's world, and seems to be in a way of which way we're going is Ready Player One. The book is fantastic. The movie's good, but the book is way better. Um, that's just an absolute fantastic story. I don't know. Have you ever heard it or read it?
I have not.
Okay, so there was a movie that came out about it, and it like the story's just so cool because and here's why I think the story's so cool is because in this story they actually do reference a lot of stuff from like the 70s and 80s as far as like Ghostbusters, Star Wars, Star Trek, Bill and Ted, Wayne's World, like I mean all this stuff from the 70s and 80s. It is associated in the story, and he like finds ways to tie them in to this world. And basically it's uh, a world where society has kind of collapsed. All the rural towns have moved into the big towns because that's the only place that has like power and the internet and all that kind of stuff left. Because everyone lives in this virtual reality world called the Oasis, and that's like actually where the majority of the jobs are. Like you have to get a job as a assistant tech or whatever, and you help people with their virtual devices and stuff. And when the creator of this device dies, he leaves no heirs to the company. So he creates a game within this game of an Easter egg hunt. And the first person to find the 3 Easter eggs gets to inherit his company. So it's this story about this wide world search of all these people trying to find it. And it's just a fantastic story. Like it's so much fun. Don't get Ready Player 2. That book is a woke piece of crap. The guy like just tried to capitalize, but Ready Player One, fantastic book. Then the other book that was and there's the reason why these two are so difficult is Jack Carr's The Terminal List. Man, if you want like
Okay.
John Wick is a great movie about revenge, but if you want another good revenge story, The Terminal List by Jack Carr is a fantastic book and a fantastic series. I've got all 5 of his books and have listened to them on Audible because I hate reading, but great story about revenge. And it's funny because when you're listening to the story you're like that politician that he's painted a picture of, I wonder who she is. Like it's very runs parallel to some real life people. And yeah, so another great fantastic story though. So I would say if I had to pick between those two, I would say that Terminal List is probably the one that I like to listen to if I'm feeling a little amped up and ready to rock and roll and stuff. But
Okay. Now, have you seen the series, The Terminal List, or the Netflix? I think it was a series.
Yeah, it was on Amazon Prime. Absolutely. Not only did I see it, my girlfriend's father, we started watching SEAL Team on Paramount Plus, and I thought that was a great show. Super excited about the next season that's coming out. And when that was all done, we were like, oh gosh, like what are we going to watch now? Jack Ryan was another one on Amazon that ended up being really, really good. Then they came out with Reacher and then The Terminal List. So we've got like these like seasons of all these different stories that we like to watch. And yeah, when The Terminal List came out, her dad didn't really know much about the story. We watched like the first two episodes here at the house. And then the next day, he told me he had watched the rest of the season. So it was like, oh yeah, well, that's basically what I did too. I binged the whole season at once too.
Right. I'm waiting for the next season of Reacher to come out, but oh well.
Yeah, it should be out. I mean, I think they've already been filming it, I believe, and I'm interested to see whether or not they stick with another storyline of another book, or if they try and go with some sort of original storyline.
Right. I'm wondering if it's going to be one of those series where he just moves to another place, you know, another storyline, moves to another place, another storyline type of a thing.
Well,
Kind
and,
of a
and that is how it
drifter.
is in the books. Yeah, he's absolutely a drifter. So in the books, it's not
Okay.
like he sticks around. It's just these moments come in, and he's just kind of there in the. I mean, it's kind of like it's unfortunate that it's like wrong place, wrong time. Just seems to be that character's story of his life. But um, either way, that the Killing Floor, which was what the first story was based off of, was a great book. And then yeah, you get into the second book, and it's a completely different storyline in a different area, and it's fun to see whether or not they stick with the books or not, because nowadays with these series being as they are, it's not like they're confined to 2 hours to try and tell a 350-page book. They've got 8 episodes, 9 episodes, 10 episodes, so they could essentially
Yeah.
have 8-9 hours to try and get a lot of the book in. So like even the Terminal List, for example, there were some things that they kind of like mashed together as far as like storylines going, to make so it's fairly close to the book. There's still obviously some changes because like I said, they kind of they like mash like 2 or 3 scenes together to make it more time constrained friendly, but um, still it's kind of cool to see what they're able to do now that they got all these series coming on where yeah, you're not confined to only 2 hours to try and tell an entire story, but rather a whole season.
Yeah, and I listened to the Jack Carr podcast, and he's talked about he's very happy with the way the series went with the book. So I'll be excited to see more of those as well.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he's also got so they also did an expansion not just to Jack Reacher, but also for Ben Edwards. So the other character that's a CIA spook in the Terminal List, they're also doing a spin-off series of him as a prequel, like how he becomes a CIA operator, and like how
Oh,
he becomes a SEAL, and then how he transfers to the CIA. So that'll be even cool that they were able to branch off another show through using another character.
very interesting. I have to keep my eyes out for that one. Now, I don't. You're into science fiction, so you may be into superheroes, maybe not. If you are, who's your favorite superhero? If not, who's your favorite historical figure?
So if we're talking about like the movie side, I love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. I think that was the absolute perfect person to play that part, and the way he plays it is absolutely fantastic. Um, but I think my favorite superhero is actually not even a superhero at all. He's just a dude with a lot of money. Well, that's Iron Man as well. But
Yeah, yeah,
Batman, and I
Batman.
think I just like Batman. I mean, they've had some great storylines. They've got some really cool villains, but I just like the idea of a little bit of vigilante justice because who of us hasn't gotten in the mood to want to go smash someone's face into a vending machine or something, just to do it. But um, no, I think Batman's just cool. He's got all the cool gadgets, and having to live the persona of two lives. One guy that just acts like he just doesn't give a flying f, and when in reality, he's constantly trying to be that playboy, and yet at the same time, he sacrifices so much without anyone knowing. Like I just think it's a cool storyline to do something like that.
So who was your favorite Batman then?
Oh, I mean, Christian Bale did a fantastic job, but
Agree.
I also think that like, see, I like Christian Bale because of the job that he did, and I think he got great storylines. Like the writing can be such a big thing. However, you also got to give some credit to, or a lot of credit to Michael Keaton for being the original. Like he was, here's a character. What are you going to do with it? And he was able to make it as successful of a character as he did from scratch. You know, Christian had a couple versions of Batman that he had to follow, and especially once it started getting to the point where, you know, like super cartoony Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, like it's not like he had to make a huge massive jump to make Batman a good movie again, because it was just getting so bad and stupid at that point. It's kind of like in direct comparison, you know, you watch Batman and Robin and then you watch Batman Begins. Oh, of course it seems like a fantastic movie, but if you put Christian up against Michael side by side, I mean, I think you're almost in a dead even tie.
I find it interesting that, and I just saw this recently. Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck both in the new Flash movie as Batman.
Oh yes, yep, I have seen that preview too. That's going to be interesting.
It sure is. I don't know how that works, but I mean, Keaton looks like he could still play Batman.
Well, you know, they've gotten so good with the CGI stuff. Like, I mean, you look at what was it? Rogue One was the perfect example. Going back to Star Wars, when the movie came out, and the very end credit where it turns and it's Princess Leia as Princess Leia from right before A New Hope starts. And even throughout that entire movie, you have Grand Moff Tarkin, who is played by a real actor, but then they did CGI to make his face look and move like the original actor that did Grand Moff Tarkin. You know, and even some of these movies they've got that are coming out where the which I can't remember which, if it was Endgame or what, but there was the one where Robert Downey Jr. even is playing in his like simulation of him having his last interaction with his parents before they're killed, and it's a young version of him. So it's like it's going to be very wild. And not to mention with all this AI stuff that's going on. I mean, there's
Yeah.
pictures that are generated that look so real, and like they have to be fact checked, being like, no, this absolutely never happened. This person was never in that location with this person. But you know, it's like with AI getting as good as it is, I mean, it's almost kind of like, man, are we even going to need actors anymore? Like it literally could be like, well, I want the character to look like Ben Affleck, and here's what I want him to say. And they've got so much information about Ben Affleck as far as his voice and the way he talks and his inflections and stuff. Like you could literally just type in a script, put in the voice of Ben Affleck, here's the character Ben Affleck, and the AI could probably film an entire movie without ever having to pay the actor anything, you know? So it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting to see what AI does and what it brings.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Because you could literally say, I want to see a combination of Selma Hayek and Gal Gadot. And poof, it would create it on the screen.
Yeah,
It'd be a heck
absolutely.
of a Wonder Woman.
You can say, I want to see Abraham Lincoln talking to Elon Musk, and it'll do it, you know? So,
Yeah. There'd be some interesting things.
yep.
There'd be some, you could really make some interesting movies with like time travel type stuff.
Hmm.
Where you could literally go back and create that person, like you were saying, AI wise, and then have a full conversation.
Right.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly. So,
All right. So getting back to guns for a moment,
yeah.
your favorite gun of all time and your favorite caliber of all time. They don't have to be intertwined.
Oh, man. Okay. My favorite gun of all time. I don't
Yep.
know.
So Congress says, John, you can only own one gun. You're only allowed one. Make it count.
I tell them to suck it. But, um, so if I had to pick only one gun, and a lot of people are probably going to give me crap for this because it's like one of those things like, how do you know, how do you tell your parents that you're gay? You tell them that you shoot a PCC. But I will say that my JP GMR 15, I like it. One, because it's a I mean, the 9mm caliber is so soft shooting. It's not super loud like it is with a 223. So you get to shoot the rifle carbine platform, but you don't have the recoil or the not recoil, the concussion blast from the 223 round. It's a 9mm going off, and it's just, I mean, my GMR 15 shoots like a dream. So I would have to say that's probably my favorite gun that I own.
Okay.
If it was going to be a gun that I don't own, my favorite gun to ever shoot, there was an AK-74 crank that Jim Fuller from Rifle Dynamics at the time, which is how I met him, and now he runs what is it? It's Fuller Manufacturing or something like that. He's got his own rifle manufacturing stuff out of Phoenix now. He had a AK-74 full auto crank. So that's the 5.45 caliber AK, but it's super short and it was full auto. That thing was fucking oh gosh, that thing was so much fun to shoot. So that was probably my favorite gun that I've ever actually shot. And then from there, what was the other favorite caliber? Oof. I think 223 for right now, and that's just because from my personal experience of what I've been able to do with that round has been pretty awesome. Between using it for recreational shooting, competition shooting, and then even now, while I haven't officially dropped a deer with a 223 yet, I do know that it's possible. So for me, I think it's just one of the more versatile rounds that I have that doesn't require a bunch of different platforms and versions of guns and models and stuff. So
I like it too as a self-defense platform. I have a buddy that hunts archery in Minnesota, or not Minnesota, Montana, that area out there. And I was like, man, I don't know why you don't sling that bow over your shoulder and just carry an AR until you get to your hunting area and then pull the bow out, because at least that way you get one of those big grizzlies or a big angry black bear come around the corner, at least you've got a way to defend yourself. Because you put 8 or 10 rounds in a bear, they're going to feel it.
yeah. Well, one of the bigger sellers for us for Rock Island Armory is actually our 10 millimeters because of bear country. So instead of having to sling an AR, a lot of these guys actually carry a 10 millimeter, either 5-inch or a 6-inch on their belt, and that's what they use to try and drop a bear if they need be. Which apparently does a pretty good job, because that's like the caliber that all the people that go hunting in bear country tend to carry for a bear defensive arm. But and I've shot 10 millimeter, man. It's no joke. I think 40 is stupid. That caliber needs to die, but the 10 millimeter's got some legit oomph behind it.
Oh, that's funny. The 40 needs to die. Needs to go away.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Like, how many departments or agencies or any of them do you hear them releasing articles being like, our department is very proud to announce that we're going to be transitioning to the 40 Smith & Wesson like, no, they're all switching away from it to either 45 or 9 millimeter. Like, and us using it in competition is something that I'm just like, oh my God, can we just let it die? Like, if you want to shoot major, fine, shoot a 45. And if you want to shoot minor, then shoot 9. But I don't know. I'm one of those guys that also has a weird opinion. Like, I think, why don't we just get rid of major, minor? Let's just call it scoring. Everyone
There
shoots
you
a
go.
9.
That would be easy.
Everyone shoots a 9 or whatever caliber you want. If you want to shoot 40, then great. Shoot 40. You'll be the only person, though.
Choose your count. There you go.
If everyone was allowed to go to 9, I think everyone would go to 9, and not just because they'd be like, no, there's lighter recoil and more, but it's just a better experience and less. I've got fucking 6 cases of 40 down in my basement right now, plus another 10 of 9 millimeter. I'm just like, I wish I just had 16 cases of 9.
Well, I mean, you could always sell the 40 and make some cash and buy more 9. So there's always
Oh,
that
I
option.
could, except the fact that as of right now, I still need the stupid round because I've got to play the game according to the rules, So, I mean, not to say that no one's forcing me to go shoot major if I go to single stack nationals, but I'm kind of being forced to shoot major if I go to single stack nationals, right? Like, unless I'm Nils and I can just go and shoot minor and still beat everyone.
Yeah, he's an exceptional individual.
Which, by the way, I'm not Nils.
So okay, but why not shoot 10 millimeter? major?
Well, because I mean, then that's just even more dumb. Like, I already hate shooting 40. Now I'm going to add more recoil to it.
Right.
No.
Make it
no.
more
Plus,
like a hand cannon.
yeah, exactly. Right. Like, well, if that's the case, why not 45? And if that's the case, why not 50? You know?
There you go. Well, all right,
So,
here we go.
Yeah. I'm in a Desert Eagle. It's technically a single stack.
Right. I did hit the steel. Look at the hole.
Yeah. So.
All right. So the last question I usually do in this, I try to cater it to the individual. And for everybody listening, you and I were on the same squad at Carry Optics Nationals back in September. And you were telling me a story about a reality TV show for MTV.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind sharing that story now?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, they had an open casting for The Real World on MTV that I ended up going to just for shits and giggles, and it was an interesting experience because you initially went in, you had like an application that you filled out that had all your general information that you gave in, and what they would do is they would pull people in to a room. This was we were in Vegas at the time, and like the auditions were happening in the Palms Casino. So you went there, and one of the nightclubs that was shut down during the day is where they would bring people in and have these group interviews. So they took them to like different tables and different VIP rooms and stuff, and everyone would sit down with a producer or someone from the show and do an interview. And it was funny because we went in with like a group of 8 people or so. They've got our application sitting there, and they're just kind of calling out your name and saying, okay, tell us a little bit about yourself. And we're going around the room. And when all things were said and done, they told everyone, hey, thank you guys so much for your time. We'll be sure to get in contact with you. If so and so and John could stay, we just have a few more questions for you guys. And sure enough, as soon as everyone left, they were like, all right, so you two were actually really interested in. Basically, they lied to the other 6 people, being like, yeah, we'll give you a call. No, they had no chance. It was me and this other guy that they were interested in as far as getting a little bit more information about. And after that, they do a video interview. So they schedule a different time for you to go, and they actually sit you in front of a camera. They put a microphone on you, and they want to see how you interact with the camera when you're talking to the producers, and they're doing like the interviews and stuff like that. And I think that's where I lost it, because unfortunately, reality TV is not looking for a drama-free person. They love drama. They want to squeeze as many people together that can possibly hate each other to make good content, right? And when it came to that, like one of the questions they asked me, they're like, so in the real world house, what kind of character would you be? Like, that's literally how they asked, like, what kind of character? As if like what persona would you bring to the house? Not who you are, but what would you? And they didn't like my answer of me saying like, well, dude, I'm like pretty carefree, so I don't really care what people say or do. Like, I'm just there to have a good time and enjoy the experience and stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, never mind. So I never got a call back from that, but still, it was a very interesting experience. It was one of the first times I had an experience with television cameras and having to be in that kind of world. And that was where I kind of discovered just how fake TV really is. And like there's still things that it's funny because when you watch TV shows and you see how they get popular and you hear people talk about them and whatnot, but you're just kind of looking at them like, can't you tell how fucking fake that is? Like the Moonshiner show, right? I don't even remember what the hell it was called, but like,
yeah,
my dad was so into it when he was still alive, and he used to tell me all about the storylines and stuff. And I go, hey, Dad, don't you think if they were really doing something illegal, the camera crew would give it away? Like, the cops wouldn't have a hard time finding them. You know what I mean? Like, they've got a camera crew following them. And and that was where, like, I kind of shattered the glass for him because he was like, "Aw, like, I never thought about it that way. Why'd you got to ruin it for me?" But, and even, there's a online talent agency that I signed up for years ago. And I still get emails from them for this day, and now they're based out of Vegas. But there was one time where I got an email for an invite to submit my application to be on an episode of Pawn Stars. And in the application, it legit says, like, we're looking for, mid 30-year-old biker looking with tattoos, item that you'll walk in with is a blank, and they would literally told you what item you had, and then so it's not even like these people are bringing in their real items. No, the producers are giving them the item and telling them, okay, here's the backstory behind this item, and here's what you're going to say on camera, and here's how we're going to do that. And it was just kind of like, man, just got to ruin TV for me.
Wow.
Everyone's liars. Everybody lies, just like House said, which is another TV show. But
Right. Well, and I heard that there were rumblings from the Top Shot staff that there wasn't enough drama in the house with all the shooters. So, but it ended up being a good series anyway, because everybody was, all they cared about was the shooting anyway. So, not the
well,
drama.
you see, I think there's a couple things that Top Shot did very, very right. I think the drama was stupid. Because in reality, if you get to know a lot of the people, yeah, there is no drama. Like, everyone's pretty chill. There's a few headbutts that have happened over the years, but however, I think what Top Shot did in a very, very, very effective way, and what I think attracted so much attention from the general public that we've tried to recreate, especially with Three Gun Nation, but that was a big thing before the Sandy Hook shooting happened and completely killed that show off from being mainstream media, was the fact that they were able to make shooting exciting because you saw an instantaneous result from that shot. If you remember, every target that they shot would either break, shatter, or explode. There was no just paper targets and then let's go downrange and see what you scored. It was like, I mean, unless it was bow and arrow, but there you see the arrow hit the 10 ring, so you knew instantaneously what they'd hit.
Exactly.
And when you go to something like USPSA Nationals, where 80% of the targets are paper, it's just kind of a little boring for people to watch because they don't know. Like, I always joke that on all my videos, they're all alphas on my videos. Yeah, right. I had 3 misses on that stage, but it looked good on video because you don't hear the miss. But so I think that was a thing that was one plus. And then the other thing was that the fact that they built some of these shooting contraptions that the general person was just like, dude, I want to do that. Like, the one that sticks out of my head was the one where they strapped them on and then they like literally had them spinning around, and then they had to shoot the targets with an MP5. I can't remember what the variation was. It was an MP5 without the shoulder stock, so they had to use a sling to push it out. And it was like they went around and they had like 20 targets that they had to try and shoot while they were going upside down and sideways and stuff. And whoever shot the most targets won. Like, I was like, dude, I want to do that. That's freaking cool. A roller coaster with a gun? Hell yeah, let's do it. So
Yeah.
I think that was
there
what
were
they
a
did.
lot of neat things they did like that. Like, I can't remember the one where they were on the cable in a chair and sliding along, in the air, just shooting targets as they were passing them. It's like, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of neat, fun stuff that they did on that show. I miss
Now, I'll
it.
say I've gotten to experience a zipline style like that. It wasn't on a chair, but MGM Ironman, when Travis Gibson used to put that 3-gun match on up in Parma, Idaho, he used to have a zip line. It was a stage. When I started shooting MGM Ironman, it was just like a side stage. It was, you can shoot it if you want, but if you don't, you don't have to. But yeah, you legit went up to I think it was a 3 or 4 story tower. They'd strap you in with your harness, they'd lock you in, and then it was like you'd take your gun, you would insert the mag and not chamber a round, and you weren't allowed to chamber the round until after you had launched off and you were over the front berm. Once you were there, you would rack the gun, and then they had like a couple plate racks and some paper targets, and you would just shoot and shoot. And they had a timer. The timer was on your back, so as you're shooting, it's picking up your shots. And then when you would get done, they would stop and they'd have to wheel over a deck that they built to get you off the harness and go back up. I mean, it was fun as hell. You can actually, if you go to my YouTube channel and you search those MGM Ironman matches from, I mean, we're probably talking about 7 or 8 years ago now. Actually, probably even longer than that, 9 or 10. But I've actually got some hat cam footage of me on the zip line shooting, and yeah, it's fun as hell.
Yeah, I would definitely pay to do that.
It was, yeah, exactly, right.
One.
So yeah. I got to experience it. It'd be awesome if that match ever came back. But man, I know Travis worked his ass off at that match. I mean, that was one of the biggest matches ever. Like, it was so big. Coaching was allowed. It was the ultimate test of your gear, because you'd go from, so it was like a 12 stage match over 3 days, right? So you would try and shoot four stages a day, but you'd legitimately start shooting at 7 a.m. and you might be done shooting by 7 or 8 p.m. Like
Oh,
each stage took about 2.5 hours to run a squad through because there would be 52 shotgun targets, there would be 60 shots with your pistol, and then another 49 shots that 15 of them were long range with your rifle, and that was one stage.
holy cow! Now,
So
did that ever get boring waiting to shoot that?
no, because you were just resetting the entire time, and the other reason why that match was so fun was because it wasn't necessarily a team match, but coaching was allowed. So you're not even just like sitting back watching this guy shoot this entire time. Like
You're involved.
you'd be running behind him, being like 3 targets to the left, and okay, 2 targets to the right, okay, load 4, and you would be giving them their instructions that
Oh,
the game
wow.
plan that you would come up with. And I mean, if your gun broke, you'd run, grab any gun off the rack, come running back up, and they can continue on with the match. Like it was, I mean, there was a stage where I was shooting with my sponsor, OC Indoor Shooting Range, Scott Stevenson, and his shotgun front sight fell off as we're getting to the end of the stage, and the last part of the stage was a MGM spinner target that you had to shoot slugs at offhand while you were standing on a
Oh,
2x4. And I want to say it was at 50 yards. So you're having to shoot a 50-yard slug offhand shot while standing on a 2x4, and he's got no front sight. So he screams to me, my front sight's gone. So I sprint 150 yards back up to the start of the stage, pull my shotgun out of the bag, sprinted 150 back to him, and as I'm getting there, he's finished shooting the last of the bird shots, and I just take the shotgun out of his hand. I give him mine. He pulls slugs out, loads it up, and then finishes the stage using my shotgun. That was the kind of match that it was. So it was like if you were bored, then you weren't doing it right.
yeah. It doesn't sound like you have time to get bored.
Yeah, I mean,
Holy
people's
cow.
pistols would go down, and it would just be like holster it, and then some person would run up beside them and pull their pistol out, show that it was clear, give it in their hands. Here's mags for it, and I mean, it was that match was so much fun, but it was you got your ass kicked. And then the other thing about that match was there was two ways to get into it. One was that you had a sponsored slot, and two was that you worked one, shot one. So not it wasn't even just like you just
Mm.
showed up, shot the match, and left. You would have to pretty much go and work the first match, shoot the second, or shoot the first match and work the second. So you got your ass kicked for 6 days. Um,
Wow.
the first time I went and shot that match, I actually got so dehydrated on the second day of ROing. I went 1 hour without drinking water. I had a hydration pack on me and I didn't fill it back up. I went 1 hour without water. And that night I got such bad dehydration that Craig Outson, who's a firefighter out in Utah at the time, had to give me an IV line. I was I was nauseous, vomiting, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sitting in camp because I also you camp out on the range if you choose to do so. Um, so I'm sitting in camp with an IV line hanging off my buddy's RV, just sitting there being absolutely miserable while the match is still going on around me. But
Wow.
yeah, that was I mean that was one of the first matches I went to where you ran from bay to bay to bay. So like one bay was specifically for shotgun, one bay was for rifle, and one bay was for pistols. So like not only is it just a big match, you're some of these stages you end up moving 500 or 600 yards throughout the process of completing the one stage. So it was crazy. I would suggest anyone go to YouTube, search up MGM Ironman, and just watch. It's madness.
It seems like you would sleep well that night for sure.
Yes and no, because I mean it was crazy up there in Parma, Idaho. The sun doesn't go down until like 9:30. So you'd be laying in your tent and there's still sunlight coming in. You're just like, oh my god, I just want to go to sleep, but it's not dark. And then sun's coming up early as hell, and yeah, and then that didn't even include. So Parma, the other thing they were notorious for was called the Parma powder. The dust that was there was finer than moon dust. So you'd get done shooting that day, you had to go back to camp and tear your guns completely apart and clean them, because if you didn't, halfway through the next day, your guns would be choked up from all the fine powder and dust that was stuck inside them from the day before.
So I assume you've shot Frostproof
Oh yeah.
because Frostproof did that to all of my. The first time I shot there was the Florida Open, And I learned there that if you shoot frostproof, you better have a way to clean your magazines.
Yeah.
So would you say the sand or the fine dust is worse than frostproof, or equal, or?
Oh, worse. Way worse.
Oh, wow.
Way
Okay.
worse. Like imagine a pile of flour, like cooking flour. Now drop your magazine in it. That's what it
Okay.
was like shooting in Parma.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Okay.
dust got like you'd go home and find dust 6 months later from Idaho still in your bags.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yep.
Now, when did you first shoot a gun?
I mean, I feel like I was very, very young the first time I ever shot a gun. That was completely and utterly unintentional. My dad was cleaning his shotgun, and it was my job to pull the trigger. And I pulled the trigger with a round in the chamber and blasted a bird shot through our wall in our house.
Oh my
Like I said,
God.
I don't remember it. I was that young. After that, I didn't actually shoot a gun until I turned 18. And my buddy's dad, Steve Warner, my buddy was named Eric Warner, and I went to elementary school. I went to high school with him. Um, Used to hang out at his house all the time. He'd hang out at my house all the time. And then when I turned 18 and I could legally sign my own waivers and stuff, his dad offered to take me out to a range and shoot. So he took me out. First gun I ever shot was a Colt 45, 1911. And then, I mean, I had such a good time with that yeah, I saved up. I bought a Ruger 1022. I was in an anti-gun house, so I bought the rifle and then I hid it under my bed for 2 years before finally coming out of the closet to my parents that I was a gun owner. Um, which they were actually like, to them they're like, "Wait, you've had a gun for the last 2 years?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, well, we didn't know. It's like, yeah, that was the point. That's why I kept it hidden, you know. But
Right.
after that, I turned 21, bought my first handgun, which was a Glock 22. I had intentions of maybe trying out for the law enforcement side, and of course, 40 at the time was the big, awesome caliber that it was. And little did I know I was so dumb back then. Um, no, but also because his dad had talked about shooting competition, and 40 was the way to go if you wanted to try limited because of the scoring, you know, uh, benefit that you
Major
got.
scoring factor, yeah.
So I tried with the Glock 22, and then like I think I shot 2 matches with that Glock 22, and then I went and sold it and bought a Glock 35 because I was just like so hooked on competition shooting, and I've been broke ever since.
Yeah, it seems to be what happens. Holy cow. It's crazy.
Yeah, competition shooting is not the best ROI for someone. So if you got money to burn, great. Welcome to the game. We're happy to have you.
Right.
If
Right.
if you're barely living off ramen and you want to get into competition shooting, I would highly suggest you go do something else.
Yeah, I would do airsoft competition, I think.
Have you seen? I mean, I don't know about that. Some of those airsoft guns are ridiculous. I mean, some of those airsoft guns cost as much as real guns do.
Yeah, some of them do. But I feel
Jesus.
like you could get away with a cheaper one, like $150 one, and be okay for a little bit. At least you could have fun.
Yeah. Well, what I would suggest too, if I could go back, don't get me wrong, I'm very, very happy and thrilled to be where I am and doing what I do. However, with my recent move to Missouri a few years ago and me getting into bow hunting, um, man, shooting bows, even just at a competition level as well, with 3D archery and Vegas 3 spot and stuff like that. I mean, that's also a great way to go. Not to mention, like, I was so confused the first time I went to go shoot a competition with my bow because I was like, wait, I didn't have to wear ear pro at all. I didn't even have to wear eye pro. I showed up with 5 arrows and I'm leaving with 5 arrows. Like, what? Normally you show up with 1,000 rounds and you leave with 100.
Mm,
This one, like I showed up with 5 arrows, I'm leaving with 5 arrows. I can still hear. Um, it was different. So I think shooting bows can even be a great way to get into a form of competition shooting without like the initial cost for the bow and stuff. It can be expensive, but once you got it set up, it's like, okay, cool. Run that bow for the next 3 years, and that investment's going to pay off itself.
right. And I'm a member of an Isaac Walton here, and they have an archery course. there's like 40 different lanes. They have mountain lions, bear, pig, turkey, raccoon on the side of a barrel. Then they have regular targets and, everything from 7 feet to 70 yards. I mean, yeah, it's crazy how diverse it is and how much you can do with that. So
It's crazy too when you look at a lot of the gear that they have that's out there for archery, like the fact that there are sighting systems. So it's not just like people think where it's just guessing, like, oh, I'm going to put the tip of the arrow 3 inches above the target and let go. No, they've got a peep sight in the back. You've got a scope in the front. The scope has pins that are adjusted to the distances.
yeah,
I mean, even to the point that they've got some of these sights, like it does like fractions of inch movements. So you could be shooting
wow,
and be like, oh man, you know, I'm a half inch low. I got to go 4 clicks up. Like it's almost like a scope turn. Like, oh, I got to come up a half M away. It's like absolutely crazy. And all that stuff is based on, how fast or how much weight is your bow flinging? How much does your arrow weigh? What broadhead you're running, the kind of vanes that you're running, what kind of twist rate you want to have on the arrow as far as it flying through the air and twisting with the rim resistance. And, all that stuff comes into play when you're shooting a bow. And then, of course, you also have the external effects. Now, with guns and 3-gun, you're shooting 300-400 yards and there's wind. You got to account for that. But with bows
right.
and arrows, 30-yard shot, you still got to account for gusts of winds and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting sport that I didn't realize was as big as it was. And I really didn't realize how much bigger the payouts were compared to competition shooting. But
Oh,
yeah, I mean, there's some of these guys actually make a living off of doing that. So I've started my own podcast called Open Action, and I had my buddy Paul Penrod, who shoots for PSE Archery, and we did a podcast talking about how he got into competitive archery shooting and how it's pretty much like a full-time thing for him now, that he does. And it's just like, man, it's crazy. He'll go to a competition, not even like a nationals, but like maybe a state level or what, and win $2 to $5 grand, for taking
oh,
third,
wow.
second, first, or whatever. So yeah, there's just more money in it than there is competitive shooting. But unfortunately, I chose to be a competitive shooter, not a competitive archer. So
Well, and so with that, I mean, what are your thoughts on competitions like Prairie Fire Rank?
I'm definitely all for it. I think if they can find a way to bring a cash payout, then it makes it a little bit more beneficial for those of us that have put in way more time, energy, money, sweat, blood, sweat, and tears, to reach that elite level. But I also like the fact that, like, Prairie Fire is kind of set up where the competitive shooter might have an advantage, but some people that are just really good shooters that don't shoot competitively very often also have a pretty good advantage. I know for a fact that Julie Golub, her husband, I think was in the finals. He's not necessarily a competitive shooter. He's a law enforcement officer. His job is to carry a gun. It's not to shoot the guns necessarily. And yet he was able to go to the finals and qualify good enough. So I think it's kind of cool to be able to see new faces coming in that are able to do well. I think the one downside that it comes with getting money involved, though, is that's where you start running into people that maybe get a little too serious or a little too gamey. They start maybe trying to bend the rules or even break some and just see if they can get caught with it. It's just, I think people's true characters can come out sometimes when you start throwing money in a match to see who's willing to do
Mm,
what for a payday. Um,
right. I hadn't
so
considered that.
yeah, it brings a new level or it brings a new dynamic to the sport when you throw money into the pot and have that as a payout, because everyone wants to win the cash, don't get me wrong, for sure, but
Right.
sometimes it's a matter of like, well, what are they willing to do to try and win that cash is where you can get into some questionable moral areas.
Yeah. And I guess that would depend on the payout because, like Prairie Fire Rank, that was significant, 50,000. Buckeye Blast is much more what I would consider reasonable or what you might expect at like $1,500 for carry optics.
Hmm.
Okay. That's one of those things like, all right, you're just going to shoot your best at a USPSA match and hope that, you win the carry optics division and you get to walk away with more money than you came to the match with. But Prairie Fire Rank, though, their initial was $100,000 total. They want to make their next one $1 million total. That's where I think you start seeing those individuals you're talking about, because that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I also think there's something to be said. There's a lot to be said about the rules and the setups for a match of that type. There's so much gray area. That's why like the USPSA rule book is just constantly growing with amendment after amendment, because someone always comes around and finds some new way to game a rule that no one else thought of, and now we got to do an amendment, for the next year and all that kind of stuff. So it's almost like if you can make it less complicated, then the rule book can become less complicated, which means that it's a little bit more cut and dry. There's less gray area and there's more black and white to make it a fair playing ground. Now, I also wish that, everyone would just have their fucking moral compasses checked every time or every now and then and just decide. There's been times I've gone to matches where, like, don't get me wrong, I love the support. I love when my friends want to help me out and stuff like that. But there's some matches where I've gone and like they're like, "Hey, McClain, come here. You might want to have this carded." And I'm looking at the target and I go, "Well, what, that single bullet hole? Why would I have them carded?" And I don't know, it looks a little oblong. I'm like, dude, I'll tell you right now, I have no fucking clue where that second bullet went, because I saw the sight picture and I never saw the second sight picture. So no, I'm not going to have that carded. Like, that's a miss. I'm going to own up to it. It's like, that's just what I've done. And I've actually seen other shooters have experiences like that too, where they're just like, what are we doing? Like, why are we wasting time? No, stop. It's a miss. I'm going to take my fucking miss and move on. Let's go. I got a match. We got people want to run through and stuff. So I've always been that kind of person. I remember there was one time at Single Stack Nationals when it was in Quincy, Illinois. Someone did that. They called me over to look at a target, so I'm looking at it. The RO comes over. He kind of looks at the target, looks at me, just pulls the card out, and I go, it's a miss, man. I'm just here to make sure that call's right. So he cards it for me anyway. And he goes, he's like, I got to call Alpha Mike, and I'm like, yeah, no problem. And afterwards, we were done. When the squad left, he pulled me to the side. He goes, I want to say thank you for the way you handled that call, because there's so many other people that'll sit here and argue with me about, I'm like, dude, it's a hardcover target at 28 yards. If I shoot perfect doubles at that distance, then I should be winning this match. But I can tell you right now, I don't do that. So, it's just, it sucks that sometimes people will, and I'll say this too, sometimes you get blessed, sometimes you don't. Some calls are going to go your way. Just know that some calls are also going to go against you. Just let it be and move on. Statistically speaking, we're going to break even.
Right. Yeah. Now you didn't you got into shooting, as an adult. So how did you go from just getting into competition as an adult and shooting all different types of competition to working in that environment as well?
So I mean, I was, when I first started getting into competition shooting, I was working as a lifeguard at the pools down there in Vegas. I eventually moved to the EMS side, becoming a EMT advanced for AMR Las Vegas. And at that point was where I was starting to get more serious about competitive shooting. I started picking up a few sponsors here and there. I actually started with 3-gun, was where, like, I started USPSA, but as far as when I decided to get serious about it was 3-gun is where I really started to practice and train my butt off for. And I just started to make some relationships with companies. Rifle Dynamics was one of the first companies to ever pick me up. And they actually built me, like, we built an AK in 223, which was such a commie thing to do to a commie rifle, was to build it in 223, right? So that's kind of how I got into the more serious side of competition shooting. Hence, then that's where the pants kind of start getting introduced, because I was taking it more seriously. I was taking it more seriously, but I needed to remind myself that it's still about having fun. And if you're not having fun, then you're just a shithead to be around, and no one wants to be around you. So just pack up and go home if you're ever in that kind of mindset, for me personally. So yeah, the pants, everyone thinks that the pants were because I'm a tension whore. That's a side effect. But the pants were really a reminder for me that I'm supposed to be having fun. And if I'm not having fun, and people aren't having fun around me, then I should just pack up my bag and go home, because everyone's going to lose at that point. And it was a great way to to get my mind off of whether or not I had a great stage or a shit stage. Because when you go to the next bay, the ROs instantaneously got to have some sort of smart ass comment about my pants. So whether or not I had a great stage and I was feeling excited about it, now we're onto my pants, and I'm joking with the RO about that. So I'm not thinking about how awesome I was over there. Now I can recenter myself and get ready for this stage. If I had a shit stage, I get to the stage, we'd start talking about my pants, and now my focus is off of the mistake I made. It's now we're reset and talking about other pants. So, a lot of people
There
think,
you
like I
go.
said, they think the pants were just a marketing ploy for me as a shooter or something like that. Had nothing to do. I didn't care about being sponsored. Well, I'll say this: ammo sponsorship did end up being very nice for me, but it wasn't for that. It was a way for me to remind myself to just be out there and have fun, right? So I started shooting a little bit more competitively, and still having to pay for a lot of my stuff. And then I ended up having to be in the right place at the right time and meet the right people. And I was able to schedule a meeting at Armscore, which was located in Pahrump, Nevada. So it was like a 45-minute drive outside of Vegas for me. I drove up there. We scheduled a meeting. We chatted. Um, it was funny. The question they asked was, "Can you beat JJ Rakoza?" And I said, "God, no." I was only a C-class shooter at the time. So I was like, no, I can't beat JJ Rakoza. But it's not because I don't have the skills. It's because I'm not allowed. I can't train the way I really want to train to become the shooter that I want to become. So they kind of agreed to do like almost like a development deal with me, where it was like, all right, well, let's see what you do when you're given some support. So it started off with one case of 223 and one case of 9mm a month is what they were offering me. And basically that I would send them weekly updates from the local match results. I would send them the videos of me training and practicing and doing what I was doing and stuff on a regular basis, so they knew that like I wasn't just taking this ammo and blowing it, like it's going towards something. And after about 6 months of that was when Martin Twasson, the CEO, was talking to Lisa, who's his sister and the marketing director. He was watching the videos, he was seeing the results, and he was like, this guy looks like he knows how to shoot a pistol. Like, he's watching 3-gun videos. So he said, let's just sponsor him year round, but see if he'll shoot Rock Islands. Because at the time I was shooting whatever gun I had. So I had a Glock 35, and I eventually bought like this Millennium Custom used gun. It was like a STI Infinity hybrid that was built by Millennium Customs. And at that point was when he asked me if I'd be willing to shoot Rock Island Armory exclusively, which I was like, I don't care. Like, yeah, as long as it goes bang. Like, and my mindset too was kind of like, Rock Island, when I did the search for Rock Island online, there wasn't a lot of positive. So a lot of people I think would take that and be like, oh, no, I want to step away. I don't want that to be what I'm a part of. I looked at it as like, okay, so there's not a lot of positive about this company, but I can maybe be one of the reasons why we get it turned around with me running the product and me testing it and really testing its limits and stuff. Then let's see if we can make the product better. So, that was kind of why I decided to shoot Rock Island Armories exclusively, was to try and get in on a point where the platform wasn't as popular and proven as it was versus where we are now. Like, a lot of people have, I think, have a lot more faith in the Rock Island Armory product because of what they've been able to see me do with mine. And that's the other thing too. Like, I have my 40 single stack was the first custom gun they ever built for me, and the only reason they built it is because we have a 40 single stack, but it's a bull barrel, which makes it illegal in USPSA. So I had to have them build me a bushing barrel 40. And I know why people say, well, why didn't you just shoot a 45? Because the other side to my argument, at this point, I had this Millennium Custom used 2011 that I had paid $2,200 for, and it was used. And I wasn't winning nationals. So at that point, I realized that you can't buy your way to a title. You really have to do the work. It's not the Arrow, it's the Indian. So buy all the top high-end gear that you want. But if you don't go out there and do the work and work on the skill set, then you're still always going to end up being unhappy with your results. So with that being said, when I picked up Rock Island and I started shooting with them exclusively, the other thing that I decided to do was to not request custom loads, but rather shoot factory. I'm trying to prove that you don't need a $2,000 pistol and custom loaded ammunition to be competitive. So now I'm shooting an $800 Rock Island Armory with maybe $300 worth of upgrades done to it. And I'm shooting ammo that I've had to before go to Sportsman's Warehouse at the event and be like, I need 300 rounds of 40 Smith & Wesson. And it's the exact same ammo that I would have shot before because I only shoot factory stuff. So my point was to prove you can be competitive with factory ammunition and a solid $800 gun with some work done to it. You don't have to go and break the bank and get a divorce over, how much you paid for a firearm to be competitive.
Now, they just came out with their 5.0 All-American made. Did you have any part in any of that by chance?
I had to, I got to, not had to. I got to shoot the gun throughout its development. And I actually shot the original version of it from Freddie Craig like 10 or 11 years ago. He used to come shoot matches in Vegas. And one night at a Steel Challenge match, after everyone had left, he was like, "Hey man, I gotta show you something." And we walked up to the firing line. He pulled the gun out and let me try it. So I got to try the original gun that that 5.0 was based off of. And then as we were developing it, I would get a chance to take it out, shoot it, and kind of have a little bit of say into it. So I will say that the majority of that gun's success and popularity, though, and the way it shoots is mostly done by the engineers. Like I might have had a say or two, like an opinion or two about it, but I definitely wasn't like, oh, well, let's change the angle of this. Like, nope, I'm too dumb for that. I leave that shit for engineers. They get paid what they get paid to do what they do, and I ain't getting paid to do what they do. So I don't know anything about it, but it was fun to watch that gun become what it has become, and I'm very interested to see how it does in the competitive world when I'm able to get my hands on one to take out, because I actually think with the way that the barrel locks up with the slide and the way it's just designed, I don't know if it'll be a good production gun. Well, actually, it's not even production legal, so I don't know if it'll be a good limited optics gun or a limited gun, but I think it would be a hell of a Bianchi gun.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I would be very interested to see how it does at a Bianchi match with where accuracy is the king.
Let's see.
Yeah, armscore.com. And then it's popping up on the screen. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to I had changed something earlier, so it was cropped into where all you could see was basically the trigger.
Oh.
So I at where we ran into each other at Chacho, I went over and played with it, and I thought it was really slick. And I came back and I'm like, man, that gun, it was nice. It felt good, but really slippery. And then it dawned on me, I was like, I should have checked. I wonder if there was a little bit of oil or something on there, because when I was trying to rack the slide, it was like my hand was just sliding down the slide. I'm like, that's really weird. So I have a feeling somebody got something on the slide when I went to, because everybody was playing with it. So
yeah, those guns were well used that day, which means that they were probably constantly being kind of brushed out and oiled up and stuff. But I'll say this too, though, like, it was one of the things I think that was one of the biggest not a downfall, but one of the cons to like the Shadow 2 was how small the slide is. It doesn't give you a lot to grab onto, and like if you've got a case stuck in the chamber and you've got to do like a punch to try and get it out, like that slide doesn't give you a lot to grab onto. And the 5.0 is kind of the same, but you take the good with the bad. What's the benefits of having a slide that is so low profile and weight reduced is the fact that it's not a lot of reciprocating mass, so you don't get a big recoil impulse to the rear. There's not a lot of mass reciprocating back and forth. It's not super snappy or anything like that. So you got to take it what it is. So, but I do think also it's just one of those things. Like once you get used to it, you're used to it. But when you're so used to like grabbing like a Sig 229 or something like that, like, and then you pick this thing up, it'd be the difference between go play catch with a softball for 20 minutes and then pick up a baseball and you're like, oh my god, it feels like a marble. until it feels
Right.
normal. So
Right. And I'm doing the opposite. I'm going from a Canic rival to a rival S. So I'm going from the baseball to the softball.
yeah, exactly.
So. Oh goodness. All right. But yeah, a nice gun though. Until next time.
Don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.